So we're here to solve this no 4 in a row puzzle by Matej. I'm just going to start by just doing a quick scan across the grid of the horizontal rows. I saw that set of 3 X's at the top. I've got 3 O's here. Doing columns, I'm not seeing any repeated sets. We might as well try the diagonals. Here's a diagonal of 3 O's. Here's another diagonal of 3 O's. Looking across other sets, I'm not seeing more there. This X, X, X looks pretty promising. Gives us that forced O. That O forces this set, which now puts in an X from these 4 cells. Does anything else I put in sort of give immediate deductions? I'm not sort of seeing any, but it's often possible. There's so many directions to look, you might miss things. One thing that's useful as you make progress in this puzzle is sometimes starting to shade or mark on the edges cells that effectively have to split. In this case, there must be at least an O in these green cells. There must be an O in these cells, but notice that completes a set where we do not want to have 2 O's here. And so that puts a tension where a cell like the one in blue, if that were X, is going to force both of these to be O's, and that's not going to work. So this actually puts a different constraint, which is this must be an O, which forces an X to the left and to the right because of the 3 in a row stretch. It puts an X here because of the 3 in a row stretch in that direction. These 3 X's give us this O, the 3 X's diagonally here give us this O, these 3 in a row give us this X and this X. Did that give us anything in the corner? These 3 O's now need a 4th spot, which is the X. They've got 3 X's on the diagonal here, so it puts an O and an O. We still need to get into this corner, so to do that, I'm seeing this cell has 3 X's with a gap, so this must be an O, which makes this into an X. So you got a good space up top. We're now looking for a constraint down below that may force an XO pattern. And so what kinds of cells are somewhat limited? I think getting to a cell like this looks pretty limited. And it's limited again because we have a case where we've got 2 cells that don't want to both be O's. And if we think about sort of matters here, if this cell, actually it's going to influence through here too. These 2 cells don't both want to be X's, but notice if this cell, I'll mark this in green, if this cell in green is an O, it puts an X here in red because of this stretch, and it also puts an X here because of this diagonal stretch. So here's a cell which can't be an O, it must be an X, and by making it an X, we get an O here, puts an X here, puts an O here, puts in an X. Now we've got to avoid a 3 in a row here, but we now have to avoid a 3 row vertically. So that puts an X, X in these extremes, and this, if it were an X, would make a last 4 in a row. So pretty good work through for this puzzle style. There's never a ton of depth for this puzzle style, but spotting cells like this one in blue and this one in green by where a single letter would chain into and make a 4 in a row in a set of other cells, particularly getting these 2 to always be the same pattern, is a kind of deduction that gets you through most of the grids of this style. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, learned a little bit about this puzzle genre, and we'll see you again soon.